Hi everyone, and welcome back to Cornerstone Tea's YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making a really fun project in the form of a hot chocolate flavored with Be My Valentine tea. You'll note that this tea is a black tea, and as such it has about half the caffeine of coffee, and we're going to be using a decent amount of it, so be aware of that if you are caffeine sensitive at all. This tea has notes of chocolate and strawberry, and just a hint of rose, not enough to bother people who are strongly averse to floral stuff. So the ingredients you're going to need are about a quarter cup of the tea itself. This will make a strong one serving, but you could easily dilute it down to taste and get two medium-ish servings out of it, 2 8-ounce-ish servings. I'm gonna do one 12-ounce serving with this with these measurements. You're also going to need a scant quarter cup of semi-sweet chocolate chip morsels. You can use milk or dark chocolate, just adjust accordingly. Because these are small, there's more of them in a 1/4 cup measure. So you could use a full quarter cup if you're using regular size chocolate chips. I'm using semi-sweet because I don't want this to be too sweet. That's one of the things I run into a lot with hot chocolates, particularly pre-made mixes, is they are just cloyingly full of sugar. There's not going to be any extra sugar or any extra sweetener at all in this because the chocolate chips are going to provide that for us. You're of course going to need milk to make your hot chocolate with. I'm using whole cow's milk because I am confident that the chocolate and the milk will melt together and homogenize, and they won't separate, which is important in this recipe. If you use a plant-based milk, feel free to do so. Just do it with a degree of wisdom in relation to what chocolate chips you intend to use. Same with the chocolate chips. If you have an allergy to perhaps dairy, you may also need to experiment with what combination of dairy-free milk and dairy-free chocolate chips will work best for you. So give it a try, and if you come up with a combo that is vegan or vegetarian, feel free to share that in the comments. I'm curious. You're also going to need, as far as equipment goes, basic stuff. Just a decent sized little strainer, a small stock pot, a liquid measuring cup that's shatterproof, not because we're going to be exposing it to incredibly hot liquids, but it's good to have. And for decoration at the end, you're going to want perhaps some rose petals, and in my case, I've got some freeze-dried raspberry bits. You may have noticed freeze-dried raspberries show up in a few of my teas, Razzlemint being one, and there's a few others. So that'll be for later. Additionally, hot chocolate would not be hot chocolate without whipped cream on top, and this is no exception. So without further ado, we'll get started on the process. So the first thing you're going to do is you're actually going to heat your milk. You'll notice in the other recipe that's kind of the pair to this one, we're using an herbal tea and we combine the tea and the milk initially together. We're not going to do that this time because a black tea, if it's overexposed to heat, can reduce a lot of produce a lot of tannins, and it can make it on the bitter side. I don't want any notes of that from the tea that are going to compete with the naturally enjoyably bitter notes of the chocolate. So what I'm going to do is heat my milk up to a good simmery boil, just something a little on the heavier end of the heat spectrum. And then I'm going to remove the milk from the heat and apply my tea to it for about 3 to 4 minutes, at most 5. So as you can see, we've got our milk here steamy, just shy of a rolling boil when I pulled it off the eye. And we're going to apply our tea to it. We're going to give it a little stir just to make sure all those leaves get hydrated. And now we're going to steep it. Oh gosh, that smells good already. We're going to steep it for a solid, 3-4 minutes or so. Just remember, with black tea, we want to be aware of too much exposure to heat can actually induce it to taste bitter. And that's why a lot of people get nauseous with specific tea types, is because they're brewing it at the incorrect temperature. So a little bit of knowledge makes a heck of a lot of difference. So now we're gonna add our chocolate chips. And because that milk is just ever so gently warm, it's going to slowly and safely melt these chocolate chips. And that's the deal with chocolate. The expression goes something along the lines of, chocolate melts in a child's pocket. You don't need to apply a whole bunch of heat to it to make it liquid. Just needs some gentle warmth and it will do its melty business. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about how, oh, because it's a chocolate chip, it shouldn't be used in beverages. The stabilizing agent that makes it keep its chocolate chip shape is going to interfere with its meltability. I personally have never found that to be the case. Perhaps if you're playing with temperature a little too much, going from hot to cold and back and forth quite often, you may have your chocolate seize up and get granular and lumpy and gross, and it won't be salvageable. It's never been an issue for me to use chocolate chips in beverages, and frankly, they're more cost-effective and more widely available. So that's what I'm using in my kitchen, but you do whatever works for you. Ooh. You can smell the chocolate and just a hint of that strawberry. Gosh, that's gonna taste good. In my pre-film tests of this beverage, I appreciate this one a little bit more because the chocolate note tempers any sugary sweetness that would be existing in those chips. And it's kind of spaced out the flavor profile with the tea. It's just phenomenal. Like, talk about a elevation of what you're already very used to, or perhaps have been disappointed by in the terms of pre-made chocolate chip or pre-made hot chocolate mixes. So now that we have stirred this chocolate and dissolved it in, we can get to the fun part and pour.
Go for it.
A little bit of whipped cream. And some rose petals and freeze-dried, perhaps strawberries or raspberries. Since the tea has strawberry notes, freeze-dried strawberries might make more sense, but either way, that is just stunningly beautiful and a lovely testament to the affections that run this season. Kids. This is a mess. This is a goddamn disaster. Shush. Just let me cook.